Hello and welcome to the Accountable Podcast. I am so thankful that you are here. I always like to say thank you because whether this is your first time or you've come back many times, I know you have so many choices when it comes to listening
Um,
to a podcast. And I'm so thankful that you're spending time with me today and my amazing guest. I cannot wait to just dig in and talk about all the things with her, but I will let her introduce herself. Dr. Amy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm just absolutely thrilled. And certainly when we were talking earlier, just hearing about your mission and the message, and then also your audience, just couldn't be more excited. So thank you.
Same here. And we have to give a shout out to Alessandra. Her and her team are
Yes.
doing such amazing things, and you were on her podcast, and I'll make sure to link that in the show notes. And we just had to get you on mine. It was one of those
Awesome.
things that it was like, oh my gosh, you do amazing things. And so we're going to talk about getting stuck kind of in a rut and how to get out of it and all those good things. But I would love for people to get some context of who you are and what you do, because I am amazed at the amount of, not the amount of clients, but the type of clients that you've worked with, being Olympic athletes and Navy SEALs and all these things about performance. So can you give some background of how you ended up doing what you're doing today?
Sure. It has been one, I just incredibly grateful journey. So I'm a clinical and performance psychologist by training. I started off early in my career, actually interested in more crisis intervention, disaster psychology. So my very early work in the 90s and early 2000s was responding to help performers, if you will, and respond to mass disasters. So I was on the ground zero working with NYPD and fire after 9/11, the tragic shootings at Virginia Tech, victims from the Hurricane Katrina and helping communities rebuild down there. So I kind of always start with like my roots, if you will, in this field. And while I love that work, I also very quickly understood the intensity and the impact on myself in doing that work, and had the opportunity in my grad training to meet now my best friend and a wonderful colleague who introduced me to the field of sport and performance psychology. I was an All-American basketball player in college and had never heard of sports psychology. This was in the earlier 90s, mid 90s. And she introduced me to the field. Through that lens, I ended up in the NCAA university space for over 20 years in my career, working with athletic departments, student athletes, coaches, administrators. Had an amazing run in that work. I made it a joke that I kind of made my way through the conferences, started out and the ACC was at Virginia Tech, then made my way to SEC at Mississippi State, Pac-10 back then, later became Pac-12 at University of Oregon, and later at University of Arizona. And then through that journey, just really viewed my role as like an internal consultant to what that organization I was serving, and embraced really trying to support that organization and the unique needs that each one of them posed. So whether that was University of Oregon, where sports science, so a lot of these wearable technologies that have made its way into the commercial space really back then kind of were coming into the field and helping us better understand performance, training load, how we can help elite performers recover and be ready to perform when it matters most. Arizona did a lot with around sleep for wellness and performance, and also looking at how we can use non-traditional supports to help overall wellness. So coaching was a big part of that. And during that time, had an opportunity to transition out of athletics to the university space and as chief wellness officer. So my last bit of tenure at University of Arizona served as chief wellness officer, and had an opportunity to return those early roots of crisis intervention since COVID hit. And we looked at bringing in, making accessible different supports to help that community. Built peer support, psychological first aid program. Very proud of the team there. It is still going strong even now. So very proud of how we could bring the community together and using that non-traditional mental health support to help people through times of stress and crisis. You mentioned Navy SEALs. So after that long journey, had amazing journey working around resilience, performance. Certainly was a co-author of a book on transformative resilient leadership with one of my mentors, Dr. George Everly. I was contacted by colleagues who I'd known and was interested in whether or not I wanted to return to my home state. So like many of us during those times of 2021 and that personal reflection, had an opportunity to move back to my home state of Virginia, and a phenomenal team, the Human Performance Team at Naval Special Warfare Development Group, So I served there. That is an interdisciplinary team that really has become standard of practice in elite performing organizations. You see it in NCAA organizations, professional sport organizations, Olympic sport, NGBs, and then also certainly in our special force commands. And there, it was not clinical work. So it was not working as a psychologist treating, say, depression, anxiety, PTSD, but rather working with experts, subject matter experts in recovery, strength and conditioning, performance, dietitian, and certainly our phenomenal medical staff, whether that's athletic training or certainly with physicians, and looking at ways that we can help optimize individual and team performance. So I was able to do that, and really kind of along the way, I say all this, but my prime job was being a mom. So I'm a single mom to two girls. Probably that's my greatest pride. That I have one who's finished her freshman year in college, one who will be a high school senior. And as I had received more inbound requests for work over the years, whether it's speaking, training, or even coaching, I saw an opportunity to kind of meet the personal need of that like last stretch of momming in high school with also bringing this service to those who maybe not as accessible or even maybe never knew about this for performance. And that's really corporate athletes, leaders, and teams. So close to 2 years now, I took a leap and started Athey Performance. So we bring speaking, coaching, and training to corporate performers, teams, leaders, and we do so using this standard model, which is a holistic interdisciplinary team. So on Athey Performance team, certainly you have myself as like the executive performance coach, but also we work as a team, performance dietitian, looking at active recovery, sleep, and then also physical activity with our strength and conditioning subject matter experts. And so yeah, loving the work, and now working more and more with this new performance domain, which is corporate.
Love this. Thank you for giving the background.
Yeah,
I know it's like a twisty turny road, but
it
yours
is
was pretty
eternity
linear.
long.
It was more linear than a lot. So
Yeah.
thank you for giving that background because it gives us such the setting of obviously you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, you've worked with incredible people. And now it's really interesting what you said. You were like, I want to make this accessible to people who may not even know that it's a thing because we're not in the corporate world or whatever. And so I
Mm-hmm.
speak and I work with entrepreneurs, primarily women. There are some guys, shout out to you all out there, but primarily women who are entrepreneurs. And some have small teams, some have large teams, but a lot of them are more at the beginning stage where they want to create that team, but they are really trying to optimize their performance the best they can and are going at it alone, which you can understand when you started a company, even though you brought on other people, it was like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to do this. And so
Yeah.
how is that different from when you were working in a, salaried job and you were
Yeah.
doing the thing? How did that shift for you when you were like, okay, I'm going to put on the entrepreneurship hat now?
Yeah, so I left out a little bit of the journey. So, only because, like you said, it can get really twisty and turny. So, while I was at Arizona, I had a phenomenal opportunity to join a startup as a co-founder, and this is before ChatGPT. But we had a great 4-year run. We raised a seed round. Philadelphia 76ers Innovation Fund and Mucker Capital were our leads, where we were looking to democratize access to coaching. And so we built a platform at that time that could automate coaching through like CoachBot.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, this is a bit ago. And timing matters. I've learned lesson
Right.
number one, timing matters in the space. So, as much of a cliche as it is, there's a reason why you hear so many people say it is that you learn so much more from failures.
Mm.
And to the point where should we even be defining it as failure, right? So when I made this leap, I had that experience, that 4-year run being a tech entrepreneur. Obviously, I was working full time. So one lesson very early on is, you know, practice what I preach. Like there are 24 hours in a day. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm working as a chief wellness officer or as an associate AD, like those are long, those are 7 days a week positions. And I want to be a tech entrepreneur, right? Like, and I'm a mom and, and I'm a friend and I'm a daughter. Like it just, you're spreading yourself so thin. So
Mm-hmm.
one of my first lessons learned, and when I thought about Athey performance, as risky as it felt, taking the leap, I knew that I could keep doing it more as that side hustle. But if I really wanted this to grow
Mm-hmm.
and reach those goals and that vision that I had, I really had to be all in. So that's like the first takeaway. I guess the two other takeaways that I well, maybe three, but like the two other that I also currently serve as chief clinical officer and advisor for a wellness platform, Potential, which has built a phenomenal platform to help HR, really in particular, and employees better access those services through this very personalized well-being assessment. So science-backed, phenomenal team. So my takeaway there, having that experience is really, and other teams I've been on, is at this point in my career, I feel very blessed, but also I'm very intentional about partnering and working with those who play well in the sandbox. Like I just now have reduced that runway that I give to make something work. I'm loyal to a fault, probably. That's like one lesson learned. And even in like personal relationships, work relationships, once you have enough data, like think of it from this empirical point, right? Statistically, we don't have to survey, some surveys of 500,000 people and they're giving like really good trends on whatever XYZ they're measuring. So why am I giving someone that I'm working with 2 years to be more collaborative, communicative, supportive, on board with a vision? Like, what am I doing? Like, how much more data do I need? Is there a possibility of a shift? Absolutely. So one thing is like, I'm very deliberate in choosing those who I feel that are very aligned. We have very similar values and how we want to do this work personally, professionally. So the team is so matters. And then I would extend that out to, I know many have said this, Sheryl Sandberg comes to mind, but truly that team extends to who your partner with is in your personal life.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no Olympic athlete who's gotten to that podium alone. There's no CEO who makes the run of the turnaround, the IPO run alone. So, you know, taking a look, I'm very blessed now to have a partner who pushes me a little bit in taking that risk, pushed me to make this jump full time, and certainly feel supported by him. So team matters. And then I think we've talked a bit offline, but also just being open to changing how I work. I mentioned my philosophy. What I built at Mississippi State is different from Oregon, is different from Arizona. And the reason for that was there are different needs. There are different performance demands. Well, now at Athey Performance, or at this point in my career, if I'm going to lock in and stay steadfast on like, well, this is how I did things for 20 years, I'm completely setting myself up for hardship. And you see this now, like, for example, AI and the technology. Technology is, I have a love-hate relationship with
Mm-hmm.
technology. I'm in that Gen Xer, one of the last generations who grew up without it. So everything is new. Everything feels like a learning curve. So there's really obvious points of where I have to adapt, learn, iterate how I'm working and what I'm doing. But then there's these subtle ways too that I think mindset shifts matter. Am I embracing and continuing to learn and better understand those that I'm serving, those I'm partnering with, and so that we can still make that impact? Because
Mm-hmm.
if we don't keep shifting and iterating, it's like, why are you surprised when iPhone 2 is like not making a difference, right? Because we're on
Right.
iPhone, I don't even know what we're on now. 16, 18, I don't even
Right.
know.
Right. Thank you for that. What I heard in boiling it all down is the things that have helped you as you made that transition into entrepreneurship is learning from your past failures, right? Quote unquote
Yeah.
failures or lessons that we can call them. But what I heard was that you went all in. So that was one. You had to go all in, you were ready and you made that leap. And I hear that a lot of like, I made the leap because it freaking feels like a huge thing. And I get that. Like, it is all of us being like, can I do it? I'm going to jump in all the way. And so you went all in. And the other thing is what I keep hearing is a support team.
Yeah.
That idea of having, whether it's team members in the business or support outside of the business, what I'm hearing is a support team. And I think that's amazing. And I'm curious how you've seen that. So, like, you coach people, you are part of the support team for a lot of people. So, at what point do you see people reach out for that support when it comes to optimizing performance, taking things to the next level? And I'll put it in the context of the women listening to this podcast are often sitting alone behind their computer. Maybe they have some contractors, maybe they have a little bit, but they're like, okay, I like that idea of a support team. And so they're feeling that nudge of like, maybe I need some support. And it's that making that leap of like, but can I, for whatever reason? When you work with people who have the team already, what is the thing that they have that we on the other side may need? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're asking me what is that team providing that perhaps maybe I try to avoid the jargon, but that force multiplier, right? That
Mm,
the one person behind the with a few contractors may not fully be having like in
mm-hmm,
their experience, right? I think for me, I'll answer it twofold. Like personally, in as my team has grown with Athey Performance, I just have noticed like this bandwidth like
mm,
expansion. And it's not just in like productivity, like, oh, you can get more social media posts out and more
mm-hmm.
consistently. Like certainly that's of value. It really comes down to like the human system. And as a leader, feeling that I have the more cognitive, emotional bandwidth to stay in pursuit of that which I am, very passionate about, but that I'm after, right? That pursuit of being able to provide training events or speaking events or coach with another executive team. If I am depleted as a leader, the service in which I'm offering, it's going to be subpar. It just is. Like, and so when we think about high performance, people ask me all the time, like, well, high performance, was that like hitting your KPRs and hitting these, yearly sales goals or whatnot? And yes, outcomes matter, but the first thing you learn in high performance, it's really about how can we optimize you and your experience so that you have greater life fulfillment? Because then all of those other outcomes end up taking care of themselves.
I
But
love
it's
that.
really, really easy to get caught up with outcomes. And in sport, this
Mm,
is really obvious, right? Like it's really obvious with teams, right? One of the great coaches I had the privilege of working with, I was at in 2012, 13, I was with Oregon football, Coach Chip Kelly, really an innovator, especially when you look at the offensive game. I learned just as much from those that I worked with. And one thing I took away from him is from training camp till right before that Rose Bowl game, the meetings were very clear. And I never heard once we're going to win a Rose Bowl championship or a Pac-12 championship.
mm. What did you hear?
I heard about like offense, defense, and special teams. We know
Mm,
statistically, if we don't turn the ball over more than 2 times a game, we're probably going to win. So, what do I need to do as a running back, as a quarterback, as an offensive lineman, as a receiver? What do I need to be doing to take care of the ball?
mm,
And it filtered down to those positions. So they're taking care of the ball.
mm-hmm,
But every week, that was the focus. Basically, we were looking at how can we optimize each individual and the collective,
mm-hmm,
from coach, from recruiter, from medical, from everyone in the collective. If we can be our best selves,
mm.
we will probably take care of the ball,
Right.
right?
It makes
So
a lot of sense
yeah,
when you
so
say it like that and you boil it down. And to
yeah,
the entrepreneur listening, gosh, what a brilliant and win this is of
take
like,
care of
if
the
we take care of
process.
ourselves.
Yes, and the key elements in that process. So the first has to be, I have to take care of myself. So if you focus on the process, it's not that anyone in that room didn't want to win a championship or go to the Rose Bowl. Like that's inherent. It's not that anyone on your team may not want to launch that MVP. They wouldn't have signed up to be part of this team if they didn't have a belief and a passion and an interest, hopefully aligned values to, you know, to
Hmm.
take on that goal. And so, yeah, of course they want to launch the MVP. Of course.
Right.
So what are the core components in the process that are going to lead to the highest likelihood that that launch is going to take place? One of them, first and foremost, we believe the tenets of performance. Wellness is the foundation of performance. How you take care of yourself as a leader and take care of your team is the cornerstone in that process. We touched on it a little bit. The second one is what got you here won't keep you here. So just as people are very focused on how we're iterating the MVP and which features we need to include, like, what are you doing and taking stock in that as you as a leader, as a performer? Because what got you here will not keep you here, much less continue to help our team evolve.
Hmm.
And then the third core component that we believe in that process, the relationships are the agent of change. I said earlier, like, no one gets to the podium alone. But the reality is, like, if we are learning, we are changing. There's many ways to do that, whether it's through the support, the challenge, the motivation of the people around us. That is what helps with that change. So if you look at that process and you
Hmm.
focus there towards this targeted, actionable, like behavioral, like launching this MVP, like your odds improve. And not just that you'll optimize your performance, you'll have greater fulfillment, but also more likely to sustain that over time.
I
And
love
that's
that.
and that's one key piece. Like, we have amazing talent in our society, our country. And when I read headlines of CEOs getting just like slammed by burnout, anxiety, depression, so yeah, like, they're human. They
Hmm.
are human, right? And one of the investments we found in these other performance domains, whether it's elite athletics, whether it's special forces, is that recovery matters for high performance sustainment. And that's why you saw the investment in each one of those verticals with people like me and other members of our team, because they're human systems. They're not robots. They're not superhuman, maybe phenomenal talent, and also running 25-year career.
Hmm.
You're gonna experience that quote
Right.
burnout, anxiety, depression without that recovery.
Right. This is fantastic. I'm just going to recap for everyone here the process, wellness being the foundation. So you
Mhm.
have to be taking care of yourself. What got you here will not keep you here, which I think is brilliantly said. Of you've kicked butt to get to where you
Mhm.
are, but you're going to have to keep changing because things are evolving. So I think that's great. And then relationships are the support to change. And I think having all of that together is so helpful for the person listening because they can say, okay, now we boiled it down. I need to take care of myself. And so I'm curious to dig in a little bit more. So if let's assume the person's taking care of themselves. That's great. We're good there. And then they realize, okay, I do need to shift, whether it's taking the big leap or changing something within their business. Maybe it's not working. Maybe they need to shut it down. Maybe they need to pivot. Maybe they want to do something else. It doesn't matter what the change is. Change is hard.
Yes.
You've worked with amazing people that do amazingly hard things. And what we know about Olympic athletes and Navy SEALs is that they somehow push through when everything in their body says, do not do this thing
Mhm.
because it's hard. My muscles hurt or whatever. This is going to be really hard. If you can boil it down when you think about what helps those people push through, is it different for everyone or is there something that's like, this is the thing?
So there are a few key things that kind of cross performance domains, whether that's SEALs jumping out of planes or pursuing on target, or athletes making the last second free throw to go to the championship. And I'm also very hesitant to even put those two performances in the same category. I think we use a lot of, if I can go on a tangent, sport is a game.
Mm-hmm.
Navy SEALs protecting us and our freedoms,
Not a game.
not a game. So I wanted to kind of make that clear. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not putting necessarily, it's just different. It's
Mm-hmm.
different value there. Nonetheless, to your question, when in moments that matter for
Mm.
people, regardless of what that context is, there are a few key things that we find in people who rise to that, into that role, into that
Mm-hmm.
demand. The first I would say is, where is their focus? And when it's hitting the fan, whether that's change because it was kind of unexpected, maybe it was out of your control. Like maybe a spouse comes home and says, "We're done here and I want a
Mm-hmm.
divorce," right? Or there's a sudden death, or all of a sudden the funding you thought you had is no longer.
Mm-hmm.
We have had banks all of a sudden
Right.
become no longer, and people are wondering how they're making payroll. When those things happen, the first thing they do is their attention. What are they focused on?
Mm-hmm.
And I know we talked a little bit offline about the value of actionable strategies. I'm huge on that, um, because I've seen so many people. The reason why like people don't make shifts despite what used to be like the self-help section at the bookstore, now like everything that's viral out there, it's not from a lack of information or
Mm-hmm.
even arguably knowledge, which is the combination of that information and their
Mm-hmm.
experience, but really like taking action. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I've got this information now. What am I going to do? If you're talking about focus,
Mm.
ask yourself one tool that I use a metaphor of a toolbox a lot.
I love it.
In your life toolbox, one tool, which is like just as basic as a hammer, nail, screwdriver, like the basic tool is asking yourself what's important now. Win. You have to win. So when it's all hitting the fan, the first thing that elite performers do is they have an attention to that which matters most in the moment that they are in. A renowned mental performance coach, expert used to say, like, be where your feet are.
Oh,
Right now, in
yes.
this moment, what is important now?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think back to our experience as a society and in our many roles during COVID, you saw some of that
Mm.
really. Like if you had really effective comms teams, you saw that because those people were crushing it with hourly updates,
Mm-hmm.
right? Why? Because in moments that matter, things can be very fast paced, can be very dynamic. You can
Mm-hmm.
get information every hour, every half, like even sometimes every minute that might be causing you to like pause, reflect, and like, okay, do I need to take a different course?
Mm-hmm.
So attention matters, and elite performers in moments that matter most focus on what's important in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And even more so, they refocus to that. So again, these are humans,
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal humans. And it's not just that they can attend to what matters most, but when they are distracted, they can refocus. So you don't have to be a robot. You don't have to be superhuman. What you do have to learn how to be aware when your focus gets off target and come back to refocus back to what matters now, what's important now. The second piece I'll say for elite performers and what we can learn from them and their moments that matter is in managing that pressure, they are highly skilled because they have practiced at regulating their emotional energy.
Mm.
We feel and then we think. It's how our brains are wired. So if you get metaphorically punched in the gut, you will have emotional arousal experience. We may label that differently. We may label that as anxiety. We may label that as frustration, as anger, as rage. We may put labels to neurophysiologically. I can tell you what's happened to your brain. The emotional centers of your brain are releasing a lot of hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Adrenaline helping you perform, testosterone and cortisol. But when that happens, if you do not use skills to down regulate that, what
Mm-hmm.
happens is the frontal lobe, the part of our brain that's used for organizing information, analyzing, problem solving, all that higher order thinking gets flooded. And so if you've ever shot that email, sent that text, the words come out of your mouth, and afterwards, like,
Yes.
oh, hell,
Right. Should have thought about
I,
that for a
I
little
could have
bit.
said that a little differently.
We've all done it.
I might want those words back. That's what's happening. Okay. The emotional center of your brain is hijacking these other, other parts of the brain that are critical. So, in moments that matter most, what we find Like if you look at the research on Navy SEALs, it's not just that they can go 0 to 60 and they're pumped up and they're ready to go and they can take action, decisive action, rise to that occasion. Most importantly, is after they jump out of that plane and they land on the ground, they can down regulate,
Mm-hmm.
lower that heart rate, engage that parasympathetic nervous system so that the other higher order parts of the brain, they've got a problem set in front of them that they have to work. So if they're all emotion, let me tell you, they're not going to be optimized in that performance. So attention, regulate your emotions, learn some tools to do that. The actionable tool that we often work with is breath. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of different breathing strategies out there. The takeaway here is that you have to practice. This isn't something that you can just do. When people say, oh, I took a couple deep breaths, didn't work. I'm like, oh, how often do you practice that? Well, I tried it. You told me to try it.
Mm-hmm.
No. How often have you rehearsed that skill? And then how often have you rehearsed that skill under pressure so that when that moment that matter happens, it's a tool that you're very familiar with and you can optimally use.
Mm-hmm.
So attention, breath work, you know, I, I go back to team a lot, but certainly learning those core teamwork communication skills are going to be necessary. Like we are not wired, we do not come evolutionary from a space of being on our own. And
Right.
so work, find ways to connect in those moments that matter because we have blind spots. You
Right.
may think you know your spouse. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care if you've been together 30 years. There's something in that interaction you don't know. And so having those people there to work you through. And also, we know that when you talk about change, you talk about resilience, social connection is the number one antidote for the stress reaction, the traumatic stress reaction that comes from those crises, like, and I'm hesitant to use the full trauma, but sometimes change can be traumatic. Social connection is key. So that's where I would start.
That's fantastic. So, what I'm hearing the most, because my personality type, and I talk a lot about personality types, so if you're willing to share, I'd love to know some of yours. But I am, and a lot of people in my audience are the people that go, 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 go. We don't really lack taking action. Most people are taking action and not slowing the heck down. What I heard was, Amanda, here is your reminder to pause and focus because if I'm only going, if we're going, 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 we're not taking that pause to understand where my focus is. And I could be focused on the wrong thing. And that's really interesting because I think looking at elite athletes and elite performers is like the coolest thing. I could talk about this all day because I think it's so interesting. And to know that the key that you have seen across the board is pausing to focus and then down regulating is remarkable to
And
me.
then once you have down regulated, your the portion of your brain that you need to reflect and problem solve and think can come online. And we
Right,
know that elite performers, they do that. They routinely engage
right.
in that reflection. I'll throw something at you if you can take a soft challenge.
I would love it.
Um, because I heard you say one thing about you is you're very driven and you go,
Hmm.
go, go. And you recognize that at times perhaps there would be benefit for you to
Yes,
pausing, to reflecting, and even I would extend that into some type of recovery.
100%. That was the
Sit
next
on the
question I wanted to talk
sit on
about
the
was
couch
recovery.
and do nothing.
Yeah.
So what I would argue, and one way you might consider shifting and thinking about this is actually your go, go, go is being lazy. That's the easy thing. That's the thing you know how to do. That's what's most rehearsed. And actually, you're being lazy. So if you really want to work hard in achieving, going after, pursuing this craft that
Hmm.
you are on, this journey that you're on, if you really want to work hard, it may mean like one Saturday, you sit on the couch and for 3 hours, chill, read a book, journal, watch some mindless TV.
A home show. I love home shows.
There you go.
Home renovation shows.
That may be your hard work
Wow.
because we fell into the society like this. And I love the entrepreneur. I love the the American value of the hard work, and certainly depending on your generation, I'm an Xer, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was just ingrained in us.
Right.
And somehow that got boiled down to, these old bumper stickers you see while you're sleeping. I'm at the
I
gym
know.
getting better,
It's
right?
terrible.
And it was more of like, more is always better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell you that's shifted dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at elite performance organizations, if you want to take a lesson learned from someone like Olympic athletes or Navy SEALs,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing you're going to learn is like, number one, sleep is the number one performance enhancer. So the role of active recovery becomes just as valuable as perhaps that strength set they did earlier in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So just, you know, a soft challenge that, you really aren't working hard when all you do is grind, because that's what you know how to do and that's what you've rehearsed over time. And that's really not a shift. But can you build in, routine sleep wake times? Can you build in, um, you know, 15 minutes
Mm-hmm.
of reflection at the end of your day? Can you build in 10 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing in the
Mm-hmm.
morning and the afternoon? Um, you know, so, and it doesn't have to be massive change. It can just be like subtle shifts
Right.
that you start building up. And what you find is that by holistically addressing high performance where you're at, you might find greater fulfillment as well as increased likelihood of you getting what you're at.
I accept the challenge, Dr. Amy. Thank you. I think the title of this episode is going to be Someone Called Me Lazy on the podcast, which I think is great. And I have been on this self reflection journey. I think once you put the entrepreneurship hat, it slaps you in the face. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, all the things you have hidden about yourself are going to come to the top. And so I feel like I've been on this journey. I welcome it on the podcast. So I love that you just did what you did. And I feel like I have done a better job of
Mhm.
building in that time.
Yeah.
I definitely have movement in the morning. That's really important to me. Like I've really gotten to the point where if I can, I will take walks throughout the day, several. Even if it's just 10 minutes around the block or whatever, I'll take a walk. That really helps me a lot. It helps me refocus. So I tend to notice, oh, I'm losing my focus. Oh, I'll go on a walk and I'll come back and I'm good. So that trigger has really been helpful. But the breathing part, and what I'm hearing today, for me at least, is I need to keep working on it, because when the crisis comes up, and the crisis could be the internet's not working today or whatever.
Right.
Like it could be like something like that. I'm not talking, it could be a big thing, but it could also be like something kind of small. My natural habit is not to pause. And so I have to rewire that part even more. That's what I'm hearing today, of like, okay, it's time to really focus on that in the moment
Yeah.
versus like, oh, I've been in it. I've been unfocused for 15 minutes already. I need to try and find it at minute one.
Yeah. Well, there's two things. There's one, the focus, and then the arousal or
Right.
reactivity. Fine, I'm losing my words. So with both of those, just know as a human system, there are so many factors that impact that.
Mm,
So we were talking about sympathetic engagement, parasympathetic
mm-hmm.
downregulating, right? But there's so many factors that impact our emotional reactivity and our ability to maintain attention or even refocus. One of my favorite books that are out there, Johan Hari wrote a book called Stolen Focus.
Mm,
He is a journalist, but has done a phenomenal job interviewing the world's scientists and takes a very holistic approach of trying to better understand why, as a society, our ability to maintain focus is just
crap.
dropping. And of course, many of us focus on like the increase in screens and technologies, and
Mm,
certainly that's a component, but he does a really good job of capturing maybe some other options, other
that's great.
variables that impact that. With emotional regulation, sleep, huge
Mm-hmm.
on both of the fronts, both attention and emotional regulation. But why I value so much working with the performance dietitians of our team is also understanding all the different, basically the impacts of hormonal and
Mm,
developmental shifts, changes that happen. To self-disclose, I'm 50. Certainly, I thought I knew what a hormonal shifts meant from my teenage and 20 years.
right.
This is just a whole nother level.
It's a whole new world.
Whole new world, whole new world. And the brain fog that comes along with it, it's brutal sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
so I often do have to, if I can, if it's within my control, deliberately schedule certain things. Like
Mm.
3 o'clock is not when we need to be having this
No.
conversation. Letting you know, 3 o'clock is a good time for me to take that walk. 3 o'clock is a good time maybe to do something that doesn't require like really me putting my
Mm-hmm.
thinking hat on as much, something very routinized, administrative,
Mm-hmm.
So, just keep in mind, I guess a little dose of self-compassion goes a long way too. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's awesome. You're focusing on those, like, what's a realistic, like, subtle shift? Because I know I could have, under pressure, I can be
Mm-hmm.
really reactive. I know my
Mm-hmm.
attention can wane. Practicing that pause, even if you
Mm-hmm.
don't have time or you don't have the access to take a walk around the block, after you listen to this podcast, can you put your phone down? Can you turn away, literally, like just turn your back to
Mm.
your computer and just take 1 minute and close your eyes, take some deep breaths?
Mm.
Like sometimes it is these micro doses that really can help us.
Mm-hmm.
Should you get, after you listen to this podcast, you get that phone call or that email, you're like, are you gotta be kidding me?
Right. I love the reality of that because that's
Yeah.
really what happens. It's like, sure, we
Yeah.
have these big things that happen, in our lives,
Right.
but it's the day-to-day crap. It's the getting the email that throws you off
You're like,
or
seriously, I
whatever.
thought we just spent an hour talking about this,
Right.
right? Like, what
It is
is
so
happening?
silly and it's like, God, that can throw you off.
Uh-huh.
But to your point, if we're well, if we're resting and we take that moment to focus and say, what is important right now? And then, down regulating ourselves if we need to, and then taking the dang action. Like that's the other part of it of like whatever you need to do the
Right.
hard thing.
Do that one hard thing. Yeah. I think there's a tool that I was just talking to an executive I work with, and he was talking, it was a people issue, right? And he knows it comes with the job, but nonetheless, like he was just commenting about the bandwidth it was sucking from his day,
Mm,
right? And some of it was just very much his strategy, his thinking about it, how he wants to navigate this interpersonally, also with other people on the team. And I made a comment like it is very valuable, and I'm grateful. Like I am really very supportive of the reflection that and
mm-hmm.
that time that he's taking. However, it was a double-edged sword because it was bleeding into this other meeting I have to be present in and this other pitch
Right.
I have to deliver. So if you get off this podcast and you get that email, to your point, you can take your breath, down regulate what's important now. I need to get to XYZ. That's more of a priority. But you find this like nagging thing,
Mm,
just schedule it.
yeah.
I got you. And go on your calendar and literally find 15 minutes. And it might be at 5, it might be at 6. I'm going to put it in. I'm going to put it in. So it's, we're wrapping up on noon right now. I'm going to put in for 5 to 5:15. I'm going to take this. And now you've given it its energy. And okay, now I've got this to do. And
I
this is
love
what's
that.
important. And so it's like it's an action
Mm-hmm.
that now if it creeps in, yep, I got you. We're going to do that at 5. That's scheduled at
Love that
5.
tactical piece so
Yeah.
much. And I'm
Yeah.
a big proponent of that as well. I had a therapist a long time ago, tell me, Amanda, when you're feeling that anxiety come up, you take a physical object, like I'll take my phone, and you put it on the shelf and you leave it there. And if the anxiety comes up, you have to take the thing off the shelf and you have to pick it up and say, I am going to worry about this in 20 minutes. And you have to put it back on the shelf. And I thought that is wonderful. And what you're
Yeah.
telling us again to do is if that nagging thing is happening, you have to let something else hold the mental load. So let it be the calendar, let it be the shelf, let it be the piece of
Well, and
paper
then
you write
what you
it
might
on.
find at 5 p.m. is it's not as powerful and you might not even take 15
Right.
minutes to worry about.
Right.
Like, and I'm not dismissing, there are some crises that occur that require, it's a time sensitive issue
Sure.
or it's a risk that's incredibly high. It requires that sense of urgency and
Mm-hmm.
dropping everything. That's not what I'm talking about. But these nagging pieces, and also just kind of remember your mind is ultimately trying to help you out.
Mm-hmm.
So if that anxiety starts amping up, your mind and body is just saying, hey, pay attention. We want you to pay attention.
Right.
And you can instead of fighting that, instead of stop, I don't want to be thinking, just acknowledge it. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
say, I got you. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you for bringing this up. Thank you for, I hear you. But when you drive in the front seat and you got the two kids screaming in the back seat,
It's not a fun car ride.
it's not that you turn around and wholly give them your attention, because
Mm.
you're going to run off the road. You might look up in the rearview mirror. You might
Mm.
toss back a goldfish, right? Or the box. Just take the box,
Right. The whole
right?
thing.
But you look up in the rearview mirror, you acknowledge the voice. I got you. We've got 4 more exits. And then
Mm-hmm.
and then you put your attention back to what's important now. So yeah, the 5 o'clock placeholder can be the goldfish. Like, I got you.
Right.
I
Yeah.
hear you. I'm not dismissing it, because if we avoid it, if we like fight it, you're giving
Mm-hmm.
it power. You're turning around and
Mm.
and fully giving all of yourself to this distress,
Mm.
and that's when people run off the road.
That is powerful. That is powerful. At least for me, that hit hard. Of like, I don't want to give that my power today
Right.
or any day. I want to,
I'm
I'm
trying to get
driving
there,
this
man.
car.
I'm trying to get there.
Right. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Dr. Amy, I could talk to you all day long. This is so fun.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is
we
so
should do it
fun.
again.
We should definitely do it again. And I know that everyone listening is going to want to learn more about you. So, where can they find more about how to work with you, all the
Yeah.
good stuff that you do?
So our team, you can find it Athey Performance. So it's ATHEY performance.com. I am a 2025 goal is being more active in sharing some thoughts on social media. You can find it at Instagram, Dr. Amy Athey, LinkedIn, Twitter,
Perfect.
Facebook. So yeah, welcome to follow. Welcome reaching out if anybody has questions or follow up, or if any interest in more of our work. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to
Thank
have
you.
all the links in the show notes and that we're
Okay.
connected to. This has been so wonderful. And I'm
Yeah,
really,
thank
really
you.
thankful for all of your time. So I always like to give a next step for people that they've listened to us for however long it's been. And they're like, this was great information. How can I move forward? And I help people take action. So it's like, what is one small action after we've talked about all these things today, one small action that they can do right after listening to this?
Yeah, I think I use the metaphor of the toolbox a lot with people. And so we've talked about different tools that can help people basically optimize their lives in matters in moments that matter. And you don't have to be shooting for the podium, you don't have to be jumping out of the airplane, but there's tons of moments that matter for us, either as a parent, as a partner, as an entrepreneur. So, some of those tools we talked about with wellness, maybe it is like physical activity, getting up, taking that walk. Maybe it is optimizing sleep with, can you have a regular sleep or wake schedule? We talked about certainly breath work, how can we just focus on a few deep exhales, or turning off that computer screen, closing our eyes and focusing on our breathing for a few minutes. When we talked about the shifts that come, what got you here won't keep you here, really like that openness, curiosity to learning. So how are you building in reflection in your life? At the end of the day, what's one thing you want to keep doing? What's one thing you want to do differently? It keeps it really simple. If you answer those questions in simple, actionable behaviors, then you've got your focus for the next day, and you can iterate that. And then lastly, relationships are the agent of change. So none of us kind of find that we step into our moments that matter with the grace and quote unquote the performance, how we would like to react, respond, perform without those around us. So maybe it's grabbing coffee with that mentor. Maybe it's just, instead of sending that text to the friend, maybe calling on the way home. Um, connect with people matters.
I love that. So, your accountable action after listening to today
Pick one,
is to pick one of the tools and
pick a
use it.
tool. Yeah,
And use it
yeah,
and just make sure
yeah,
it happens within the next 24 hours to
yeah.
actually do the thing. Dr. Amy, thank you so much for being here
Thank
today.
you. Appreciate you.
Yes, and thank you for listening. I really appreciate you spending your time with us today. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and that you keep being accountable.